success stories told by the people who lived them.
We're going to have some guests on this show that everybody knows, and we're going to have guests on this show that nobody knows yet.
One by one, Nick Hyder is adding hits to the Hitstreak.
Blessings, folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Hitstreak. I'm your man, Nick Hyder, and in the Hit Lab with me today, folks, I've got an extra special treat for you. I'm so excited. I have the co-host of the Crook and Chase radio and TV productions, Charlie Chase. Charlie, thank you so much for being here, brother.
Looking forward to the visit here, really, because we have so much to talk about. And I know the direction you like to go with these things. I think I have some input that somebody might be able to use.
No doubt. I'm a little bit scared right now.
No, well, you should be. No, listen, please understand. I'm the one who should be scared because I'm usually asking the questions. I'm usually not the one being questioned, okay? So we'll see how this goes.
Well, any and all input, the good stuff is always welcome, right?
Certainly, you bet.
Well, again, it's so great to have you here. The last time I saw you, I was probably a teenager. It would have been in the mid '90s when. Does
the term obnoxious teenager fit? No, it doesn't. No, you're a good kid. Yeah, I worked with your dad.
That's right.
And your dad, along with the legendary Charlie Monk here in town, produced an album that I did. I actually recorded an album back in the '90s, '93, and had Garth Brooks on there and Doug Stone and a lot of other artists who joined in. It was a lot of fun. A new experience for me because I'm used to playing the music, and promoting the DJs, or not the DJs, promoting the artists and that sort of thing. And it was a whole different ball game. And your dad made it so easy. And he did a lot behind the scenes to make sure that was a worthwhile project. And I was very proud of it. It's called My Wife, My Life.
Well, it was a fantastic album, and there was actually the song that Garth was on with Doug Stone. Mm-hmm. My son and I still play drums to that track today.
Do you really?
Absolutely, we absolutely do.
I love playing drums. I mean, that's something that I don't know if I would ever be a studio musician. I never got around to reading music. I just had a natural playing of drums that I liked, and it always fascinated me. I never had an interest in guitar or anything like that. I don't think I had the patience to learn or take lessons. I did take lessons in elementary school. I played trombone for 2 years. You know what a trombone sounds like without the trombone? I mean, just the mouthpiece?
No.
That's the way it sounds unless you put it in the horn. Then it comes out just, wonderful. And then I played drums for a couple of years in grammar school, and then started working in bands and things. So that was cool.
Well, my son's 13, my daughter is 1.5. We were hoping and praying for our daughter for years before she graced us with her presence. But that song, the one that we played tracks to, all of a sudden it was special because I thought it was just one of the most tastefully done arrangements, and John Gardner just played the heck out of that track on the drums. Yeah. However, all of a sudden the words had a whole new meaning to me when our daughter came along.
And what I find fascinating now, I go to the flea market and I find that CD and I find our book that we wrote back in '93 in the bargain bin. And it's kind of funny. I went up to I was at a flea market with my daughter, I guess, a few months back, and noticed Crook and Chase book right there, and it was autographed. And I don't have my phone with me now, but I took a picture of it because it's autographed, and the guy's there, and I held it up, and I look a little bit different now, 20-something years later.
Yeah.
And I said, "That's me," and he went, and the price went up a couple of dollars.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
It was fascinating. It's weird seeing yourself at the flea market.
I can imagine.
As an item.
I can imagine. Well, that was so how in the world did you go from being a host to all of a sudden, like, who had the bright idea to say, hey, man, let's do an album?
Charlie Monk.
Charlie
had picked up on the My Wife, My Life recitation and thought it would be, a good thing for me, having the broadcast background and all that. And we cut a little demo, and Sony picked up on it and said, yeah, let's try that. Let's do it.
Yeah, it wasn't some little podunk record company.
No. It was big time. And they put out all kinds of little merch, promotional merch and things like that. See, I was known for wearing all these weird ties on television at that point. So they had a Charlie Chase tie.
Yeah.
Still got one of those somewhere that they put out as promotional material. But, I didn't realize what all artists had to do back then. It's a whole different ballgame now. But back in the 90s, if you put out any kind of music or project or whatever, the record company would like for you to come in maybe once or twice a week and call radio stations and say, hey, look, I've got this particular cut out. I would love for you to consider playing it on your station. Mm-hmm. The more spins, the more sales, et cetera, just part of the promotional aspect of it. But it was hard work. And Charlie Monk said, hey, let's try this. And we did it. And it wasn't a huge seller or anything like that, but it was a project I was very proud of. Got a chance to sing. I'm not a professional singer. I'm the first to admit that. But when it comes to the recitation, I thought I did a pretty good job. We did it on television and so forth and so on. Mm-hmm. And it's still relevant today.
Absolutely. Well, and the production, again, the production was just so good. That the quality of it still holds true today, man.
We had strings, we had drums, we had everything.
It was incredible. And I was fortunate enough to be able to be there when a lot of that stuff was going on. It was really neat. And then I think I came to probably at least 6 or 7 in-studio television shows when you guys were doing stuff on there, which was always a blast.
We had, at the height of Crook and Chase and Music City Tonight, we were doing the show at Opryland, and we were live Monday through Friday for 90 minutes. 90 minutes live, Monday through Friday, variety show, artists, features, that sort of thing.
No pressure.
The late night shows now are on 3 or 4 nights a week, and then they'll take off several weeks. We were doing 250 shows a year. And we would have anywhere, depending on the season, if it was during this, Opryland was still open at this point. At the height of the season, we'd have 1,200 people in there every night to see the show live, and a waiting list. And during the winter months, when the park was closed, we still have 800 in there.
Wow.
So we were very proud of the fact that TNN was serving as a catalyst, a springboard for country artists. And Lorianne and I, in doing that show, and all of our Crook and Chase productions, one of the main things we do is put the shine and the spotlight on the artist. We're there to, certainly it's our gig and all that sort of thing, but you're going to get the best entertainment value of any kind of production if you know how to put the focus on the artist in this particular case. Let them shine, because you see them performing, you hear their music. But who are these people? Right. You get to know them that way. Let the personality, shine through, and people were appreciative of that. And so were the artists.
Absolutely. And you guys did that for years.
Mm-hmm. We started in 1983. We did This Week in Country Music. Okay, and you can probably still find some of these old clips online. And we did that because there was no other show. Entertainment Tonight had been on for not too long. It had started. Entertainment Tonight covered all the showbiz things, movies and TV and all that. There was nothing about country music. Nothing. So we did This Week in Country Music. Jim Owens had this idea of a weekly entertainment update on country music. So we did that, and honestly, when we first started, it was a tough time finding 23 minutes of entertainment stuff to put in a 30-minute show when it comes to country music. Seriously. Because it's not like it is today where you have access to all sorts of media input.
Right.
And so we started that. And then we started Crook and Chase as a result of that. The personalities between Lorianne and myself really started to gel during This Week in Country Music. So they said, hey, let's do a daily show, Crook and Chase, for TNN. So we did that. And our first guest, you'll appreciate this, our first guest, live guest, on-set guest, and we were still shooting it at Channel 4, WSMV over here. First guest was Jerry Mathers, the Beaver.
No way.
Yeah. He was so cool. He was so cool about that. He later came in along with Tony Dow and Ken Osmond. That's Eddie Haskell and his brother, and played golf with us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Man. So that was back in 83. So I want to know, I understand the path for an athlete and maybe even like a musician, like artist, performer type thing. But at the end of the day, what you do is also a version of performance.
Sure.
How do you decide, how do you decide that you want to be in like doing what you do, but it's like an artist, but it's not an artist. You know what I'm saying? It's how do you to be on the other side of the desk?
You search inside. You search yourself as to what's attractive to you. And I will say this: I've always been attracted to music. I haven't talked about this much, but when I was 4 years old, I made my first radio appearance when I sang on. The gentleman's name was Carmichael. He was a blind piano player at WRGS in Rogersville, and he had a show. And I was a big fan of Tennessee Ernie Ford. And at 4 years old, they stood me up on a piano bench, and I sang a little bit of 16 Tons of Number 9 Coal.
Oh, wow.
By Tennessee Ernie Ford. Embarrassed to even mention that now.
Is there footage of that anywhere?
No. No. And I would pay good money if there was to lose it. But no, I've always had an interest in music. And it goes back, I mentioned the drums thing. I enjoyed playing drums. So I was playing drums in bands and things like that. I loved the music. I just loved the attraction of it. And there was a time when I thought, hey, I can get into politics.
Okay.
And that's pretty attractive to me. I was thinking about that in high school. As a matter of fact, the teachers were aware of that, and I was like class president and all that stuff. And I say all that stuff. I don't mean to throw that away. That was a very important position to hold, and I was very proud of that. But as a result, the teachers saw that my interest was in leadership, politics.
Oh, wow.
So they sent me to Washington, D.C. when I was a senior in high school to the Presidential Classroom for Young Americans, which was kind of cool. We had a chance to visit the State Department, the White House, Congress, everything. We were on the Senate floor. We did all these things just to learn about the government. And I came back and I said, yeah, this is pretty cool. I was briefed by the teachers. They said, well, tell us about this trip now. The only bad thing about it, I had to ride the bus from Rogersville.
Oh, no.
From Rogersville in East Tennessee to Washington, D.C. on a bus, 11 hours. Anybody who was standing on the side of the road, we would stop and pick them up, and he'd have to buy their ticket.
Oh, no.
Oh, thank you. So anyway, I got that out of the system. I got back, and what turned things around for me, and this had been a thing since the Kennedy assassination in '63.
Okay.
And I realized, I realized that people have differences of opinion in politics, but when they turn to violence to stress their cause, that scared me.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, I don't know if I can do anything effective if I'm running scared, if I'm acting scared. So my interest in politics is still there, but as far as being a participant, I feel like I have a commitment to family.
Absolutely.
And it's like Karen's always on my case. Don't you ever go flying with the Blue Angels. So I flew with the Thunderbirds. So anything that puts you in harm's way, why do it?
Sure.
It doesn't be on your bucket list or anything like that. So anyway, that's one reason I lost interest in politics. But being in the leadership role gave me a chance to be up in front of people, and gave me confidence to be on the air. And in radio, when you think about it, you're a DJ, you're a host on a radio show or whatever. You're in a room by yourself, talking to a microphone, and hoping to God somebody's out there listening to you.
That's right.
You're one-on-one, and that's the key element of being in radio. When you're on the air, you're speaking to one person. Thousands, millions may have access to you, but you're speaking to one person.
That's right.
And that's the focus right there. So I felt good about what I was doing there, and Opportunities presented themselves. I hopped on board, and it's what I've been doing for 57 years.
57 years.
Yeah.
Man.
I was a kid when I started.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So, well, that's interesting because, like, we've always said that leadership is a calling, and when you're leading people through an experience of whatever kind that it is, especially when you're holding the microphone, like it's like a lot like back I remember the days of DJing in the club. Like I was in charge of the revenue, not necessarily having a good time. My job was to circulate the floor,
Sure.
and make sure the bar was busy certain times, right? So, but it was always a great time to, you always knew that this part was going to make all the girls scream or something like that. It was just really neat to be able to just feed off of those emotions.
Sure. I think back when you talk about responsibility and the leadership and something that's instilled in you. I think back on a terrible event with the passing of my dad.
Okay.
Mom and I were in the other room, and we couldn't wake him up. She said, "Go and get your dad." So I go in. I was the one that found him.
Oh, man.
When I was 10. And my brother had already flown the nest. He was 10 years older. He was working in Virginia, and to make a long story short, later joined the Air Force and California Highway Patrol. So it was just Mom and me. Mm-hmm. And 10 years old, Mom was doing her best to keep everything together for the two of us, and she did. But I almost instinctively, I guess, picked up on the fact that I've got to step up. I got to step up. I'm too young for this, but I still have to give it a shot.
Right.
And I was working when I was 13, to help support Mom and me. Mom was a waitress. And I think back of all the long hours she put in, and then I was making $1.10 an hour. I got a raise, started out at 90 cents an hour. You believe that?
Big money back then, though.
That was minimum wage. Mm-hmm. So I was making $1.10 an hour, and I saved up my money. And one of the proud things I bought Mom an air conditioner.
Oh wow, that's cool.
When I was a senior in high school, I bought Mom an air conditioner because the house wasn't air conditioned, things back then. So I just felt that I needed to step up and do my fair share. And I guess you consider that a leadership kind of thing, personal leadership, not necessarily to anybody else, but to yourself.
100%.
Say, I got to do this to help out. And I feel proud that I did that.
So you started at 13.
Yeah.
That was right before high school. And tell me about, did you have any strong mentors or people of influence when you were in high school?
My teachers. Karen and I will tell you, we had some of the most influential teachers. Karen was a year behind me.
Okay.
And we've been married 51 years now, by the way.
Congratulations, man. That's incredible.
Thank you. Our teachers. I was on the air latter part of my freshman year and going into sophomore. And a lot of it was just behind the scenes stuff beginning. But then, I was on the air. I do the morning show. I was a sophomore in high school, and I was doing the morning show. I go to school. Actually, let me back up. I would ride my bike to school, the radio station, at 5:30 in the morning. I'd do the morning show till about 8:15. And it was block format, but informative. And the secretary come in and take me to school. She picked me up at 2:30. I learned to drive because I'd drive her car back to the radio station. Nobody knew that. And I'd work till sign off and then ride my bike home.
Wow. That's
cool. I was a sophomore in high school. And I'd ended up, all those long hours and everything, I remember my W-2 form was $1,100.
Man, for the whole year. For the whole year.
For the year. But see, it gave me pocket money. I helped Mom out, things like that. But let's see, where was I? I'm lost. I'm all over the place now. But
your teacher.
Yes, I would be on in the morning, and one instance I do recall. May Brooks was my sophomore English teacher. Bless her heart, she was a wonderful teacher. All my teachers were wonderful. And I would walk in, and she'd have something written on the board. Charlie, pronounce that for me. And then she'd correct me because she heard me on the air that morning.
Oh man!
And the one I remember was I said, talking about Florida city, okay? I called it Pompano Beach. And she said, nope, it's Pompano Beach, Florida. Little things like that.
Yeah.
Karen and I, to this day, talk about the influence of our teachers. And I admire teachers. You talk about leadership.
Yep.
Oh, good grief. Think of the impact these people have on all these different kids every year. Karen and I sit in front of the TV, and we are the grammar police. We see all these anchors on TV going, let's do this for he and I. No, it's for him and me. It's for me, not for I.
Right.
Come on, people, wake up. And they overpronounce things. I hear Tennessee Titans.
Yep.
Wrong.
Yep.
Tennessee Titans. Speak like you're natural. And that's what they did. They taught me a lot of public speaking.
Yes.
As far as not only content, but delivery, eye contact, looking at your audience when you talk. So, yeah, those were the influential people that was a good basis and training for radio and later in for television for me. So.
Well, public speaking, anything is a skill set that has to be crafted and developed and sharpened and always improved, right? And and it's great to have people that hold you accountable.
Well, yeah, you're right. The teachers were great, and then I would listen to guys on radio. I remember listening to Larry Lujack on WLS in Chicago, John Records Landecker on LS, and I always had this dream. Hey, I want to work at WLS, the big 89. And had that dream through high school and everything else. And later in life, just fast forward, I'm working at WSM, the big 50,000 watt clear channel blowtorch of the South, we called it. Knock squirrels out of the trees with Conway Twitty records. And I met John Guerin, who was the PD, the program director at WLS. And he came up and he introduced himself. And I said, well, yeah, I do the afternoons at WSM. And he was as impressed with WSM and me working there as I was with him working at WLS. And I thought to myself, I've reached a good pinnacle here. I didn't realize it, but I've reached a good pinnacle.
That's right. Being
at WSM. I was so thrilled at that meeting. And Dick Clark was standing right next to him.
No kidding.
And
what was that like? So you met Dick Clark?
Yeah, Dick Clark was cool. He's a radio guy, so we talked radio a lot. The best time I had talking and visiting with Dick Clark, he and I were doing a role bit in a Clint Black video. It's still online too.
Wow!
And it's we shot it at Malibu Beach.
Okay.
And George Kennedy's in it. Jay Leno. Howie Mandel.
Wow, everybody's young.
Yeah, me, Dick Clark, and all these people. And I'm sitting here talking with Dick Clark. His house is right back up here on Malibu Beach. So he came down, and we're shooting the breeze and everything else. And he started talking about Michael Jackson. He said, is that kid, he started out back in this, oh, boy, he's getting weird now, that sort of thing. So we had good conversation about it, and he and I dressed up in wigs and women's clothes for that particular video.
And there's still there's footage of this.
I can't stop it. Cause summer's coming, by the way. Clint Black, you owe me.
Oh man, well, summer is coming. That's for sure.
I know. No, and somebody else that I really admired. Was Johnny Carson. Never met Carson.
Okay.
But I did meet Ed McMahon. I'm standing in line to get a hamburger out at Universal Studios. We were doing our TV show out there. And I'm standing in line. There's a pat on my shoulder. I turn around. It's Ed McMahon.
Oh, wow. And
he'd seen the show. He, was well aware of who we were and all that stuff. And we talked about TV and just the pressure of live television, not only the pressure, but the fun, the excitement of live television.
Right.
You put things on tape, you think to yourself, okay, well, if I mess this up, we'll go back and do it again.
Right.
live TV, you're on your toes. You got one shot at it. Give it your best, Take charge. Know what you're going to do. Have the confidence going in.
That's right. That's right. Well, folks, we are in the Hit Lab today with the one and only Charlie Chase. You can check out, follow them on Instagram at Crook and Chase, and obviously on the web at crookandchase.com. And, man, we're having such a good time. The, one of the things that I've always recognized with you guys is, and it was something that I go back to, I was sitting in Dad's office one day, and it was a young artist that Dad had brought to Nashville by the name of Perry Danos, was sitting in a chair, and he was always messing around with his facial hair, always trying new things. And Charlie Monk walked in one day, and he was sitting right in the chair, right by that door, walking into Dad's office. And Charlie walked in and said whatever Charlie would say, and he looked down at Perry. He goes, "What's this?" And Perry was like, "Oh, I'm just trying something new." He goes, No, you're a celebrity now. Always, when you go out in public, you got to look the part. You guys always have done such a great job. I feel like there's a responsibility that comes when you're in a position like you're in. There's a certain level of respect, and I don't know what the right word is, but just it's just a responsibility of and reputation that you just got to have. There's certain lines you just don't cross, and I feel like maybe my generation's guilty of that from time to time. You guys always there's hardly anything. There's just a level of respect that you just give your audience, and you give the people, and you give the production.
Well, over the years, people get to know you. They think they know you.
Yeah. And
one thing that has been preached to me is be yourself on the air, and just like yourself off the air. And when you do that, you make the strongest connection. People come up and they know you.
Yeah.
They think they know you.
Right.
So that's the responsibility you talk about.
Yeah.
You've made a commitment. They made a commitment to you is what it is.
Yeah.
And you don't want to let them down. That's
right.
Because you can change their attitude toward you like that. So while they respect us on the air, I respect them even more because they're lending part of their time, part of their life to bring us into theirs.
Yeah, and it was like you said before, you focused on making sure it was all about your guests and not about you. And a lot of times we make it about us, and our opinions end up foreshadowing all the gifts that the guests can come and all those things. There's something that the celebrity came in the prior generations. There was just a level of respect. Like you never saw Dolly Parton not in Dolly Parton mode in public. You know what I mean? And we've kind of lost that a little bit. I feel like you guys have done just a great job. Even today with all the technology and the access people have to you, that hasn't changed.
Yeah. The one thing that I've always given a lot of credence to, and I learned this from a lot of people, when you meet somebody in our position, okay, being on the air, radio and TV and all that, and when you meet somebody, you want them to go away with a good impression.
That's right.
Nothing negative. The slightest little negative grows, as the story is repeated. And I'm not trying to be somebody I'm not. I'm real, but I want them to go away with a positive experience about meeting up with me.
Sure.
Learning from me. They're not afraid to voice their opinion. And I say, I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I said, if I don't get the feedback from you, I don't know how to adjust. Tell me why, and you absorb those things and you make them part of your daily routine. And it's always worked for me. I tell you, I have tremendous love for these people who have watched and listened to us for years and make the comment about it. And they'll remember certain little things. If they met us in person, they'll say, hey, I remember we were down there at the CMA festival and all that, and you guys came up and said hello. And it makes such an impression, such a lasting impression. So
absolutely. Well, the word I was searching for was professionalism.
Yeah. Well,
and you guys have maintained. Everybody gets to that level at certain times, but you guys have stayed there. It's incredibly important. And Charlie Monk said the word authentic at least 20 times on the episode. So did Danny Myrick. So did Bobby Pinson. All the greats, they all are like, you got to be authentic.
Real.
Yes.
Just be real. That's all. When people are watching you from home, you're in a different world. They want to be in your world. They like your world. So make it inviting.
Yeah.
When they come into your world, say, "Hey, welcome. Come on in. Yeah, this is what you expected. Here."
That's right. Well, talk to me about you've been living in Nashville since '74. Is that right?
Right.
All right. So before, so I want to go to that and then into like 57 years in show business. Man, like that's like, I mean, golly, we could just say it's before internet and after internet. You know what I mean? And staying relevant through all that time. If you have a business that stays open 20 years, you did a great job. And even if you just broke even.
I'm fortunate. I really am. I understand that. I was so fortunate to find something that I loved and has made my life's work when I was 13 years old. I may have had a different idea, a different direction at that point, and not the complete focus on radio, but it quickly developed. By the time I was 14, 15 years old, I knew, hey, this is something I want to do the rest of my life. I really like this. And my first interview, I recall, I was 16 years old, was Jeannie C. Riley. Jeannie C. Riley had the #1 song, not only on pop, but country as well, called the Harper Valley PTA.
All right.
And you'll love this. I'm in Rogersville, right? I'm in high school. And they say, hey, you want to interview Jeannie C. Riley? I said, okay. And the reason she was in Rogersville, which is a town at that point of 2,500 people, it's about 5,000 now, was that her bus driver's brother lived there. And he was the manager of the White Way variety store.
Wow.
So he was going to stop there, show off the bus, and let us meet Jeannie and all that. So it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm down there interviewing Jeannie C. Riley.
That's right.
And she was just smoking hot. She's 24 years old at that point. And we stayed in touch.
That's cool.
She and I have the same birthday.
Okay.
Different year, but same birthday, October 19. And we'll text back and forth or call and say hello. I think she's moved to Texas now. But she was a wonderful lady. And she was, it goes back, what we were talking about a minute ago. She made me feel comfortable in her world.
Okay.
I was scared to death. But she realized that. She projected a welcoming to me in her world. And I learned from that. That was, I think now that was a good learning experience for me. Wow.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm lost again. I keep going back and forth with you, Nick. I apologize for that. But
well, just the city's changed so much. The industry's changed so much. To stay in the forefront, to keep working. I mean, it's not easy, man.
No, it's not easy at all. This town changes. It's not just the population that grows, but just the aura of the town changes.
Right.
In moving here in 1974, I think the population in Nashville was like 260,000. It's well over 1 million something now, which is just extraordinary as far as the growth. The city has changed. The mood has changed. Lower Broadway used to be just horrible.
Yeah. That's right.
You see movies for $0.25 down there, I was told. But they cleaned it up. Now it's become an entertainment district with some questionable things going on down there. But I see that change. A bachelorette party I'd never heard of until, Lower Broadway started happening. The thing about Nashville, it was a small town when I got here. It still has a small town feel, but you have to struggle to find it anymore.
That's right.
It's grown. It's grown a lot, and that to me is the biggest adaptation you have to make, not only from living here, but from the professional standpoint. Also, since moving to Nashville, when I started This Week in Country Music, you had availability to 5-6 channels on TV. Okay. And that included PBS, all 3 major networks, and Fox didn't even appear at that point. And when we started the Nashville network in 1983, I remember, I think TNN was number 31 on the channel out of maybe 40. How many channels do you have now? Thousands.
That's right.
Thousands.
That's right.
So you have to stay relevant. You have to stay on top of your game. You have to step it up each and every day, more so than you did the day before, to stay relevant in a town that's growing like this and in an industry that's growing like this.
Right. You know, even just you and Lorianne have been together so long.
Yeah.
You know, you've outlasted how many bands at this point in duos, you know, that have to go off and do their own things. And that's just that relationship is just rare.
Lorianne and I, if I'm not mistaken, I know we're pretty sure about this. We are the longest running national broadcast duo in history.
Man.
There have been others, maybe on a local basis, that have been close to that. But on national basis, you know, up to a certain point, it was Regis and Kathy Lee.
Right.
It was John Tesh and Mary Hart on Entertainment
That's right.
Tonight. But we've been going at it since '83.
Man, and even today, you've got the Crook and Chase Countdown.
Yep,
it's in 100, and it's on 160 stations nationwide today, and streaming on iHeart Radio.
Right. We've got to know our audience, know our genre of country music, yet we've been able to expand and do things with movie stars, authors, presidents. Mm-hmm. President Jimmy Carter did the show with us.
Wow.
It's amazing. Kirk Douglas did the show with us, crying out loud. Kirk Douglas told the greatest story, Nick. Kirk Douglas was doing Spartacus.
Okay.
So he's dressed in, as Spartacus, he dressed in this, a loincloth, whatever you want to call it. A little skimpy outfit.
We hope there was more.
Yeah, well, there was. But, it's just like one of those old leather outfits, from the Greek days. So anyway, he told the story of them shooting the movie in the desert in Southern California. And it was a long day, and he was ready to get back home. So he hopped in the back of the limousine, dressed as Spartacus, just went to sleep. And the limo driver is taking him back to Los Angeles. So the limo driver has stopped in Barstow, which is about the only stop between Vegas, and Southern California, in the desert area. And he was going to get gas. So he goes in to get something to eat. Well, Kurt wakes up, and he goes to the bathroom. Restrooms at that point are still outside, on the right side. So he goes in there. He comes back out. The limo's gone. The driver had pulled away, didn't even look in the back, and Kurt's standing there dressed like Spartacus at a gas stop, Barstow. And he said, I had to go back and hide behind the potato chips, until the driver came back. But he was so funny. And he had written a book called The Gift.
Okay.
And I read the book, and see, that's the other thing, too. If you're preparing for an author, you read the book.
Right.
So, Kirk Douglas, for crying out loud, this megastar coming in. And he was so appreciative of the fact that we had taken the time to read his book. He said, we got to talk about my book. I went, yeah. I said, that's why you're here. You've got a wonderful career, but the focus right now is your book. And he said, yeah, and I appreciate that. Another guy we had fun with, Charlton Heston.
Oh, wow.
Charlton Heston comes on the show, and, he's Moses.
Mm-hmm.
So we got him to do a dramatic reading, like Moses would.
Wow.
Of Chattahoochee by Alan Jackson. Way down yonder on the Chattahoochee. It gets hotter than a hoochie coochie. He was a hoot doing that sort of thing. So you see, that's the thing. You bring out the personality. You bring out something that these people have not seen before.
That's right.
Stars, and they get a kick out of it. It's memorable.
That's right. Well, you guys have done. Had so many cool things in your career. I've got here that you replaced Pat Sajak at WSM Radio in 1976. He's gone off to do some other things.
Yeah. Well, wonder what happened. Pat, in 76, I had just left WMAK, and Pat Sajak wanted to do TV. He wanted to focus on TV only. He was doing the afternoon show at WSM Radio, 650. And so they hired me to replace Pat. Pat stayed on for about another year over at Channel 4 doing the weather and things like that, and then went on to KNBC Los Angeles about a year later, and the rest is history, of course, with Wheel of Fortune. That's where he was seen doing the weather, and they brought him on board for Wheel. He's been there forever.
Again, you don't hear anything about him other than how good he is at his job. You don't hear any, there's no polarizing stories about him. He's not in the press. He doesn't even have a lot of personality on the air, really.
See, a lot of people try to find, that's the thing, Nick. A lot of people these days will try to find something to add some adversity to your name. Why?
That's right.
And in a lot of cases, they make up stuff. And then the person who is on the receiving end of that, boy, their life changes.
That's right.
It goes back to the social media thing we talked about. But I have a lot of respect for everybody who likes to voice an opinion online, and as long as it's not polarizing, I like to see positive things.
Absolutely.
I see so much negativity now. And that's another thing about politics. I see they're fighting all the time in Washington.
That's right.
Now. Are they getting anything done? Parties fighting back and forth.
Well, I will say that I was so encouraged when we got back from the prayer breakfast with the amount of God's everywhere.
Yeah.
There, and that was so good to see, because you don't see that on the outlets.
You and I were talking about that earlier. You said you saw prayer up there. And I said,
so
really?
much prayer
In Washington? Come on.
Absolutely.
So, that's good to know. But still, again, I wish there was less fighting. Politics has changed so much.
Yeah.
There used to be...
They've crossed the line that they used to not cross.
No, I know. There used to be everybody got along and got things done.
Politicians didn't used to be celebrities either, and now they kind of are.
No. And again, it goes back to the adjustment you have to make and the responsibility you have to hold whenever you're in a position like that representing people.
That's right.
Same thing in entertainment. We're representing anybody who watches us.
That's right. You guys have been on the air for, golly, if you think in the last 40, 50 years, how many major events have happened during that time. I've got here that you were on the air when the news of Elvis passing came out. Tell me that story.
I was in the control room at WSM, and NBC was our lead network. Okay, NBC Radio.
And by the way, how did you think of the guy that played you saw the movie, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. And how did you think he did? Because did you ever meet Elvis?
No, saw him in concert.
Yeah,
but I didn't see him.
How close was the actor to
this latest movie?
Yeah,
he's really good.
I agree.
He was really good. He didn't look totally anywhere close to Elvis, but you recognized and you connected with him as Elvis when he started doing his thing. But yeah, I'm on the air, and we had in the control room a little right above the what was that? The closet where our news machine was. A little light that would signal when NBC had a bulletin. It's like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, very rainy that day. And the light came on. And when the light comes on, you got your music playing or whatever's on the air, and you punch an inside cue. And I can hear on different speaker, and they'll say, this is okay, let me back up. Code 3 is a bulletin, a real strong bulletin, government, something like that.
Okay.
Code 2 is extra strong. Code 1 is war. That's the way we were always looked upon it, there's an attack.
Okay.
And I punch it up, and he said, this is an NBC special alert, the upcoming bulletin. This is a Code 2 bulletin alert on the death of Elvis Presley. I'm getting chills now thinking about the death of Elvis Presley in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm going, oh, man. So the bulletin comes on, and you have to understand, here in Nashville, most of his mafia lived here.
Sure.
The musicians, his, mafia, the close friends of his and all that. And I'm thinking, oh, boy. So the bulletin's going. I'm thinking, all right, what do I do? So I reach back and I grab Elvis album. Mm-hmm. We're playing music at that point. Nothing's cartridge at that point. Nothing's digital. It's all on disc.
Yep.
So I put on the Elvis song, and I put on It's Now or Never. And after it was over, Well, somebody called and reamed me out for playing It's Now or Never. And I understand now, why they may have said that, simply because of the title. But I liked the song. And later on, I was visiting with Gordon Stoker, leader of the Jordanaires, and Gordon, close friends with Elvis. He was there. He was standing next to Elvis on the Ed Sullivan Show and all that stuff.
Yep.
And I told him a story. He said, "Oh, no, don't feel bad." He said, "That was Elvis's favorite song."
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, really? He said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm not lying to you." Because Gordon used to be my neighbor. I'd go down and visit with him. He had all kinds of Elvis memorabilia.
That's so cool.
So I felt better after that, but that always weighed on my mind. And I played that song, and then we played Elvis music rest of the day and night. All his friends, associates were calling in.
Yeah.
Quite a day.
He was such an iconic figure. The world hadn't seen anything really like that outside of the Beatles.
It's fascinating. When Karen and I saw Elvis in 1973 in Knoxville, I remember the excitement. We're at Stokely Athletic Center, which I think is no longer there. And he comes on stage, that also sprach Zarathustra, and then he goes into C.C. Ryder. And it was magic.
Wow.
I can't tell you. It's hard to describe the magic when he walked on stage. And then when he walked off stage, and they say, "Ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has left the building."
Yes.
That was the major announcement. He wouldn't come back for an encore. He's gone.
He's gone.
And I thought to myself, really? Is that right? Is he still back there? So I watched the movie, Elvis, The Way It Is. Elvis, That's the Way It Is. You get a chance to check it out. It's fascinating. It's behind the scenes. And it was shot, part of that movie was shot at Stokely Athletic Center in Knoxville, because I recognized the street. I recognized the back area of
Oh, man, that's
center.
cool.
And he was gone. He was in that limo. He had the scarf around him and wiping the towel and all this sort of thing, and saying, "Oh, man, it's a good show, good time in there." But it was Stokely Athletic Center.
So he didn't change backstage.
No. They said Elvis has left the building. He had. They had to get him out of there because, when he come to Nashville to record, the old Spence Manor,
Okay.
which is down here, I think it's apartments now.
I believe you're right.
Or
I believe you're
condos or
right.
something. It's right there next to the circle, the naked statue, they call it.
Yeah.
So he would come in and rent the entire place out.
Okay.
Either that or the Sheraton South, which is no longer. And they'd rent the whole hotel. But just for privacy.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of magic this man created. And if you saw Elvis, you know what I'm talking about. If you didn't see him, it's so hard to explain. But if you watch the footage and see the excitement of the audience when he walks on stage, it's unmatched.
That's right.
It really is.
That's right. You and Lorianne have had so many milestones throughout your career. Talk to me about your 40th anniversary.
Wow.
Because that's a big one.
It is a big one.
So when was your 40th anniversary?
Okay, we're in the 40th year now.
Right now.
So
Got it.
we're going to start, you're actually the first person I've told about this. We're going to be doing things surrounding the past 4 decades. We're in a process now of sifting through there and finding what we think are memorable first impression interviews.
Oh, man.
With these stars. Can you imagine going through 40 years of this?
No, I can't. I mean, how many countless of hours? Good, great. Do you guys even know how much footage it is?
No. Between television and radio. I mean, we've been on radio every week since 1987.
Oh, my gosh.
So we got all that to go through. Interviews with all the major stars from the very beginning. Lorianne and I were talking the other day about somebody who was there at the very beginning was Tim McGraw.
Right.
We saw Tim, and we saw him take off as a result of being on our television show. Garth's another one.
Yep.
The class of '89. But we even go back further than that when we were dealing with, Alabama. Mm-hmm. Back in the early '80s, Randy Travis and all these guys. So we've got a lot to go through, and it's almost like it could be a year-long celebration, but you don't want to rub it in. You know?
I think you should.
No,
You got to.
no.
You've earned it.
No, well, maybe that's questionable, but I think the idea of just making something really special here, that's what we're working on now. So,
Man. Well, 40 years in the business,
Yeah.
all the technology and world changes and all the talent that's come and gone,
Yeah.
and some stayed. What's the one thing that you see that you guys can identify in the acts that stay relevant the longest? You know, some people come in, they burn hot as fire, and then they fizzle out real quick. And some people stay, like Tim McGraw. He's still as relevant today as he ever has been.
Reba, George Strait.
Yeah. What stands out to you? Because I think this is a very, very important piece of knowledge that everybody could take away today.
Wow. What is it about all of them? Well, they've been, they care. They appreciate where they are. They don't take anything for granted.
There is a sense of gratefulness to all those people. But again, that's how the old school.
Well, yeah, responsibility.
There you go.
That, again, the key word for these people, for the longevity, has to be responsibility and respect for where they are and respect for those who put them there.
Man.
And without that, they're just one and done, as they say. You know, the one-hit wonders and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it, George Strait, for example, there's something about George that's, how do I want to say this? You don't know a lot about him. He's very shy. And I think it's a game plan. You know, you got one hand over here. You have Garth, who is a master at working marketing.
That's right.
And staying in touch with the people. Then you have George Strait. You never hear from him, but George is just as strong and relevant.
That's right.
You put his tickets on sale, they're sold out.
That's right.
Same with Garth. Two different factions here. And I think it's just the individual magic. Some people are destined to be where they are and make the impact that they have. And those are two prime examples right there, along with Reba. And I could mention countless others, but they sort of lead the pack.
Wow. So, there is an authenticity and just you can feel their heart. You can feel that, again, the reason that they started is still relevant and noticeable today.
Authentic is the key word for these people. They are real, you know, and they're carrying. When you go up and say hello to Reba or something like that, or Tim McGraw, I'll go up and I see Tim McGraw. We give each other a big hug, and we're always smiling because one of us has a joke. That's how we break the ice.
All right.
And that's another thing, too, that Lorianne and I have learned works really well when it comes to interviewing, an icebreaker.
Right.
An icebreaker question. You find out what's been going on in their life, whether it's picking up the kids at school, how'd that go? Did anybody see you while you were there? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
Just something irrelevant but personal. Irrelevant to the career but personal for them. And you'll find out that in a lot of cases people are saying things that ordinarily they wouldn't say.
Right.
You just say, you're not trying to put them on the spot, and get something out of them that you shouldn't or don't want to. But they open up. And I think that's one of the things that Lorianne and I are so proud of, that it's a visit. It's
Absolutely.
not a show, it's a visit. Turns into a show, but it's a visit.
Absolutely. Well, it feels like that. It feels like just friends hanging around talking, and we get to experience it.
Sure, yeah.
So 40 years in, what are your thoughts on retirement?
I don't want to retire.
That's what I'm talking about.
I enjoy what I do. I meet the most talented, insane people who keep me young, who keep me happy. And isn't that what life's all about?
100%.
Yeah. I like to be insane. I like to be happy. And it keeps me off the street.
You get to have a good time. There's been so many projects from record deals to we used to, when I was a kid, we used to love the little show with the pranks that you had.
Oh, yeah.
Funny Business.
Funny Business, yeah.
The when you did that thing to Mark Chestnut, like So my son's seen that, laughs out loud. He's 13 years old. It's still funny today. All them things going off in his ear.
Yeah.
George Jones and the cows. Holy cow.
Holy cow. That's a good way of putting it. Yeah, we stole George Jones' cows and tried to sell them back to him. I tell you, the one that always comes to mind was Dan Seals, the late Dan Seals.
Yep.
He was hilarious. His manager called. This is at the height of, we called it Funny Business with Charlie Chase. We play the pranks on people. They're not mean, just fun stuff. And Dan was part of a church group that was going to go pick up trash. Well, his manager called me and said, hey, look, I got an idea for you. See what you can do with this. He's doing this, and we talked it out. And he said, okay. So Dan is up here just north of Rivergate Mall, North Nashville. He and his church group are picking up trash on Saturday morning. And we've got a microphone on everybody but him. And they're staying close to him so we can hear whatever comments he has, right?
Oh, my God.
So they're up there at that exit 4, I think, when you get on Vietnam Veterans Boulevard. And he's off to the side.
Oh, my God.
He's picking up trash with a group. We're sending cars by throwing out trash. Okay? So, these people are driving, and Dan's going, huh. He said, and the next bleep, 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 who comes by here and does that, and he picks up this rock, and he's going to throw a rock at the next car that does that. Now, we thought to ourselves, okay, we can control ours, but what if somebody we don't know who's not in on this goes by and
That's right.
throws out a cup or something? Well, he's going to nail him with this rock. So we're on two ways, and we're going, bust it. Okay, come on, Charlie, come on. So I'm a half mile down the road, and I'm with the police chief, Hendersonville police chief. We're in the squad car, and I'm dressed as a cop.
Oh, my goodness. I hadn't seen this one.
I'm dressed as a cop. So we zoom up there with the lights on and everything, and we got cameras all over the place. We got cameras up here in the bushes and over here behind a rock and everything else catching all this. And Dan had this big rock in his hand, and he had it behind his back. And as we pull up in the police car, you can see him drop the mic, drop the rock right there, And we thought that was hilarious. And I go up, and he said, he rattled off all this stuff. I'm standing 3 feet in front of him. He doesn't recognize me.
Oh, man.
And I know him really well. And he doesn't recognize me until I take off the cap. And he went, you, and then bleep, 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 bleep. And he was so funny. And he's and I tell you, wait a minute. He said, if this ever happens again, and I took that as a threat. So anyway, I didn't read anything into that as being mean or anything like that. But he was so fascinated that we had taken the time to pull up such a stunt.
Absolutely, that's a big production, man.
It is, because we had 3 cameras. We had about 12 people involved, and his manager was in on it. So I think his manager could take a good cussing after that. So
I would imagine
it was fine.
Well, man, anything that I do, I don't start something unless without the end in mind. And if I'm going to do it, I'm aiming at being the best at it, right? So, and that includes this podcast, right? So, I'm always fascinated with people that have done things that I do on a grander and larger scale, because that's in my view, right? That's what I'm going for. So, I believe I was telling you before we started recording that this podcast is by far the most powerful tool in my tool belt for business and development and growth and relationships and everything else. What advice would you have for somebody like me, or somebody that's just getting started, that looks at you and says, I'd like to do something like that? Because, I could have done this years before, and I didn't. It took a lot of things that took me making the change, making the decision to do something like this.
Well, to be the best of what you want to be, you can't just dive in and say, I'm there.
Right.
You have to work toward it, and that's what you're doing. When I started out, and still I think this works today, people are saying, hey, I'd love to get into radio. I had a gentleman ask me that not too long ago. I said, hey, how you get in radio? And I said, well, there's some sacrifices that have to be made. And I said, I was fortunate early on, while I was still living with Mom, that I was afforded the chance to like intern or make little or no money doing what I wanted. I said the key element is get your foot in the door. And you can take that analogy and apply it to start a podcast, work your way up, add to the podcast, add to the content, add to the production of it, et cetera, et cetera. But you start and build. Building a strong foundation is the key element. And if you want to, you may find that you don't want to do it, but you want to give it a shot and say, and prove to yourself that, yeah, I think I can do this, or no, this is not exactly what I expected. I'll look at a different direction. And I have always been a proponent of the fact that whatever you're doing, give it your best shot. Keep a peripheral vision open for any opportunities that you say, okay, you know. But I have found that if you focus on what you're doing and you give it 100%, opportunities are going to find you. They come knocking at your door.
That's right.
And that happened to me in a lot of cases. And, you know, there are times when I thought to myself, well, maybe I should have tried harder to get that gig. And I think back and I went, no, I was working hard here and it led to this and this and this. And yeah, it's been a good game plan without even realizing it.
You know, that's I don't like quitting things, but I do finish a lot of things.
Yeah, well,
and
sure.
And beginnings hide themselves in ends.
Yeah.
Right. So
Right.
like how many times, you know, where like you've been on radio, you've been on TV, back to radio, and at hosting this and hosting that. And like there was a lot of probably like, you know, when you finished one thing, did you always have the next thing in line, or was there any time like, I mean, it's just like anything else, you know, when Music City Tonight, when you filmed your last episode, what kind of transition was it going into the next thing?
It's you always have, well, you hope to have something overlapping.
Right.
You know, we went into syndication after Music City Tonight ended, went into syndication with Universal and took the show to Hollywood for a year. But no, it's hard to plan ahead. It really is. But like I say, if you work hard, that next opportunity is going to. Here's something else. I was thinking about this a moment ago. When you take that next step, if you're not a little scared, if you're not a bit frightened when you take that first step into this new venture, it's not exciting.
No risk, no reward.
Exactly. You've got to, every time, like when I was doing radio, and they said, hey, you want to start doing music reports for Channel 4's Scene at 6. This is 1978. Oh, okay, I guess, you know. And I was a nervous wreck. But being nervous brings out the best in you in some cases. So don't let fright keep you from realizing your dream, because you have to take a chance. And without taking a chance, you know.
The biggest mistake we see people make in this space is they just don't give it long enough. Like when I started this, my wife and I made the decision. It was a year. We put our heads down for a year before we ever even look up. Right? We're going to do it for a year, no less, before we decide if this is something we want to continue to pursue.
Is that your rule now? Is that a rule that you've learned in doing this, that you know, it takes a certain amount of time, but it's hard to put a time limit on that, isn't it?
It is. But like if it's not something that we can give an entire year, we don't have enough invested in it to like. It took me a year to get good at anything, right? So I needed a year's worth of experience just to see how he did it. You know, with marketing, it'd be like if, you know, you film this great commercial and you only ran it once. You know what I mean? You got to run it over and over and over again, and get more experience and things like that. And we were blown away. I remember when it was like the 4th or 5th episode came out, and we found out that we were in 14 countries. We had downloads day one in 14 countries in all 50 states, and it's just grown. I'm amazed at the reach of something like this. It's all because of the people that have sat across from me in that chair over there.
Well, you're a good guide, see, and people realize the goals that you have in mind are similar to theirs, and they want to learn from the experience. And granted, you're the key element, you're the component here, but Yeah, it all comes together. It's a team effort, and that's
100%.
another thing too. Team efforts are good. If you're part of a team, as the old saying goes, "There's no I in team" and all that. That's true. That's true. If you're part of a team, and I've always looked at it this way: when Lorianne and I are out front, sure we're out front, but we got a team that supported us, and if we can get them some recognition on air by saying something about them and somebody take a camera shot of them, you don't see them ordinarily, but like Bob Morrison, our stage manager for all those years, Bob's over there, and Richard Simmons came in running after him, Of course, we're all over that. So, and Richard Simmons is all greased up and had shorts on. Bob, where's Bob?
Mm-hmm.
That was a memory that came out of nowhere. You respect your team.
That's right.
And they will respect you, and everybody wins.
That's right.
They may not be on camera, but they're just as successful.
Well, they know their role is just as important as yours is to the overall finished product, right?
Producers, director, everybody involved. There's so many people involved in television and radio production.
Yes.
Go unnoticed, but not by me.
Well, it's in here at the Hit Lab, the team is so good that the team was built. This studio was built for me, and the team was built for me. And then the more people that came in recognized, one, that the studio there isn't really anything like it here in town for something like this, for an application like this. But more importantly, the team everybody just marvels at the team and how they make them feel, how they're greeted when they walk in, and the professionalism of the team. They're fantastic, man. You guys really are.
Yeah. And, one thing I noticed, your wall over here where people sign, which is cool. We have, let's see, I was trying to figure out how big they are. 10 feet long, 5 feet like this. We have 3 of those that we had from Music City tonight that everybody signed.
Mm-hmm.
And we have people like Buddy Ebsen.
That's where I got the idea from, Charlie.
Yeah, well, hey.
I remember I watched B.J. Thomas sign it in the back.
Exactly. And we've got so many autographs. It's unbelievable. We were looking at some of them. And most of these people, you have to understand, these are good. But most people, artists, when they sign, you don't even know what it is.
Why are you guys not in the Country Music Hall of Fame while we're talking about it?
Oh, I don't know.
You know what I'm saying? Come on.
I don't know. No, back to the autographs.
Your collection should be then.
Well, we've got a great collection, but most of these people, they can't write really well. I could get a prescription filled with half of the stuff I've got signed, because you can't read it.
Yeah.
But, occasionally we would note who this was.
Yeah.
We'd watch them sign and say, you can't even read that.
Yeah,
and then we go back and make a note. Okay, see that scribble up there? That's so-and-so and so-and-so.
Yep. Well, that's, guys, I'm rethinking. So I have we hadn't given it to you yet, but there's a little handwritten thing from me. I might need to rewrite that before we give it to him.
Well, maybe I would get a prescription filled with it.
You could.
Yet, so.
You could. It might be a good. It might be a good time.
No.
Well, I just and I got to ask you too. Honestly, man, I'm learning. I'm studying everything. I'm watching everything. I'm watching how he's sitting. I'm watching how he's talking. I'm watching the eye contact. Literally, that was what Bobby Bones said in your interview with him. He's like, I feel like we're learning from you today. This is an incredible experience, Charlie.
Well,
for the entire team today.
Thank you. I appreciate that. If there's anything that I can share from the experiences I've had, radio and TV, that's. I'm honored. I'm honored to do that. I don't know what I can. I just try to be myself. I have a lot of fun. I enjoy my job. Always have.
Right.
And it's afforded me the opportunity to do wonderful things, have a wonderful family. And, and my wife, Karen.
She's a superhero, isn't she?
Oh, gosh. 51 years. Actually, we've been together. We were high school sweethearts.
Wow.
Our first date was 1967 at the fireworks in Rogersville, Tennessee. Fireworks display. And I think the Louvin brothers were the featured act. And we have been together and watched the fireworks every year since then.
Wow.
No matter where we are.
Wow.
Well, I got the fireworks. And of course, everybody's got the jokes about, fireworks. Boy, fireworks in that little relationship?
Yep.
Well, yes, there was.
Yep.
So,
well, that was the final two things that I had, and appreciate you again. I totally anticipated this one running a little longer than the rest because selfishly, I had a lot on my agenda today.
Well, like I say, I know your hit streak is really cool. It empowers people. It gives them a new way of looking at things. I don't know if I have or not, but I've enjoyed being here as well. And any part of my life that I can share that people can find some benefit or direction from, I don't mind.
Well, man, like, you know, when I see guys like you, I'm looking at people that I want to be when I finish growing up. You know what I'm saying? It's such a cool thing. You know, my son is probably the performer of the family. Maybe the daughter is, I don't know. But I always loved when we were in the nightclub business and owning, it was always, as the owner, I got to hold the microphone and do a lot of the emceeing and ask a lot of the questions. It was my job to make sure the culture was what we wanted for whatever it was we were doing. And we had we worked with some awesome people, but I just loved the way that people felt. And it was just, I don't know. I just, again, being out in front of folks, it's a calling. And, you know,
I just want to see people smile.
That's it.
Laugh, share a laugh, realize something that's enlightening them, would make them think about it and maybe implement it in their life. And, you know, for me, it's just from an entertainment standpoint. I mean, I'm not a philosopher. I'm not a psychiatrist of any kind. But, you know, I just like to have fun.
All right, so my final couple of things for you. All right, first of all, you've mentioned your wife Karen. I've spent time with both of your kids when we were younger. You've done a great job of, like, life happens. You know, I'm sure at some point, well, it's happened where my son said something in the wrong place, and as parents, you have to deal with it, and you try to keep it under the radar because it's a family issue and it's for family. You've done an outstanding job over 5 decades of keeping work, and home. What advice would you have in today's world with all the stuff that we got going on?
Wow.
Because you're still doing it. I mean, they could be airing out your skeletons all day long.
No,
today.
just I think family is just that. Keep it within the family. Be protective of your family. Gosh, that's that's probably one of the toughest questions to try to answer in a day like today.
Well, if you're authentic, and again, I didn't start this so I could tell people which direction I vote or how I feel about a certain person or a certain thing. I started this because of amazing stories and getting to hang out with people like you.
Well, getting back to the family thing here, support your kids. Be what they need.
Yeah.
Don't just turn them loose and say, all right, here, you got your iPad, you go over here.
Yeah.
That's something, you know, especially Rachel and our son Dave both talk about when it comes to kids, grandkids, that sort of thing. Give them your time.
That's right.
They're learning from you. Realize this, you are their mentor at this point.
That's right.
And
it's a great responsibility.
Oh, gosh. I mean, especially all through high school and everything else, that's where things are really going to change. You get into junior high, that's where you're really needed.
Yeah. Yeah, we're there with one.
Yeah, and just don't overlook things. Sometimes I think parents, and I guess I've been guilty of this in the past, you kind of had a tendency to look the other way on a couple of occasions. Don't do that.
That's right.
No, just go straight forward and just say, look, I love you. Here's why I'm asking about this. I love you. Here's why I want to encourage you to do this. Or try this. See what you think.
The value of trust is so magnified in our life right now, because that's the thing is, you know, our son is learning to push limits and learning to have his own things and his own relationships and his own life. And I just want to know what's going on so we can support it.
As a parent, equal things, correction and encouragement.
That's right. That's right. And all right, maybe I can't ask you for your favorite person you've interviewed. Maybe your top 3, just because you've probably got some relations. They're going to be calling you saying, now you didn't say it was me. It's a dangerous question.
Yeah,
but
right.
You've had so many. I don't even know how you could even really do that. But you've had so many cool things over the years, something that stands out.
Well, I do recall Buddy Ebsen, Jed Clampett, being on the show with us and doing a soft shoe, because he was a dancer initially before he became Jed Clampett on the Beverly Hillbillies. And he also was the original Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz.
Didn't know that.
But he couldn't do the role because he was allergic to the paint. You know,
Look how far we've come now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He was almost.
You need an allergy test before you can get cast.
Yes, it was life-threatening actually to him.
Wow.
So he couldn't. And I think it was who got it later? It wasn't Burt Lars. Who was the other guy? Anyway, Buddy didn't get that role, but he was such a charmer.
Yeah.
And I tell you somebody else we met that was cool. Bob Barker. The
Oh,
Price is
man.
Right. Bob, it's almost like an Elvis thing. You walk up to see somebody and you look at them and you feel their aura when you walk up there. He was such a class act. And he had the same lady who was doing his wardrobe. She started with him on Truth or Consequences back in the 50s, for
Wow.
crying out loud. And she was there to make sure he had his wardrobe all squared away and everything. And he was just, and I still have my Price is Right badge.
Oh, that's cool.
And he autographed it for me.
That's cool.
Yeah, so he was cool. I think he's still around.
He is.
And I tell you this, here's a little behind the scenes thing about Price is Right. We were out there because we were doing our show at CBS Television City in Hollywood, and you've got Crook and Chase over here in this building, but over in this building you have The Young and the Restless and The Price is Right. This is back in the 90s. Okay?
Yep.
And we would see them rehearsing and blocking shots on internal feeds in our dressing rooms over there when they were doing, The Young and the Restless. And then at 11 o'clock every day they stopped because Bob Barker would walk through that door over there, and the noise, even those sound stages,
Wow.
that noise was so intense when Bob walked through. It bled over into anything they were doing.
Man.
So they just stopped. They take a break at 11 o'clock. And we were backstage at The Price is Right. And, they have all the boats and the cars and everything else.
Yep.
And the stagehands are wearing diapers on their hands in order to push the equipment out for the staging and everything else on the show, because the oil from your hands would glisten on camera.
Wow.
So they're wearing diapers on their hands. Pushing the car.
It's amazing, they wipe down these desks and everything before we get going. I never forget when I was at the Ryman, and Dad had got me the opportunity to sit during Ricky Skaggs used to have a live show at the Ryman,
Yeah.
and Paul Lime was the drummer, and being an expiring drummer, I got to go hang out with Paul Lime and on stage, and I remember his drum tech comes out with the number 2 pencil and is erasing marks off the drum heads, and I was like, well, what is that for? And they're like, for camera, what I mean?
Yeah.
They got to be, everything's got to be clean and
You don't
perfect.
think about things like that.
Oh, no.
But it can be a major distraction if you're not careful.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, that was just a little trick. I'm going, well, that's kind of cool. And that wheel that they spin, that sucker is hard to spin.
I've heard it's extremely. Actually,
It is.
who was I with? I was with somebody at I was with Haynes at the prayer breakfast, and he had video of him spinning the wheel at The Price is Right, and so he literally just showed me that 3 days ago.
Yeah.
And he was like, I was asking how heavy it was, and of course this was backstage. It wasn't on the show. He was backstage spinning it, but it was massive.
Oh, I know. And that's why you see people falling down and grunting and everything else when they're trying to spin that wheel trying to get that dollar.
Yeah, man. It's golly, that's so cool. That is so cool. Yeah. Well, man, is there again? I can't thank you enough for coming. Is there anything else that you'd want to leave? Any thoughts? Or first of all, so you guys got all this stuff you're going on for your 40th anniversary. Where are we going to be able to find all the stuff that you guys are putting out?
Oh, well, crookandchase.com.
Crookandchase.com.
That's one thing. And, of course, Facebook and all the other social medias and things. And
Everything's at Crook and Chase.
yeah, and then iHeart. We have a platform on iHeart where we have podcasts, and we have some highlights there. We'll have the streaming show of Crook and Chase Countdown, which is airing all the time. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, there's plenty of ways to stay in touch. One thing I can say, thank you. I just want to say thank you to anybody who's ever listened to us, watched us over the years. You're important. You're why we're still here, and we hope we've found a way to entertain and touch you and your family.
Well, as a listener myself, I can say thank you to you guys for doing it that long, man.
Cool. Thanks.
Absolutely. And again, everything is at Crook and Chase on all of the social media platforms. Crook and Chase, crookandchase.com. Man, this was a bucket list thing for me. When I told you before, when we first launched the show, we came up with 100 names. It was almost like a wish list of the people, like, when we get there, we'll get these people. And your name was on there, and I got to give a big shout out to, I've been able to get some really cool people on here because of who my family is.
Yeah.
And so you got one story you could tell about my old dad, Pop, he's sat in that chair too.
Well, he always wore sneakers.
He did always wear
Those
sneakers.
solid white sneakers. And I don't know where he got them until I said, man, I like those. They're good to run in.
They weren't like New Balance. They were spot built coaching shoes.
Yeah, coaching shoes. That's what it was. That's why they were different. You couldn't just find them anywhere.
That's right.
He finally bought me a pair.
Did he really?
Yeah. About time.
That's right.
He finally bought me a pair. My dog chewed them up. So I had to get another pair. But they were not cheap.
No, and he was the only guy that like had a big in the music business. Not many people like worked out like he did back in the day.
Well, he always dressed like a coach when he was in the office down on Music Row.
That's right.
That's why the sneakers. So right. But I always admired those sneakers, and they were so comfortable. They were good. So thank you, Mick.
Well, I got to say thanks to Pop for he helped line this all up. And,
he's a good guy. He's a great guy.
And make it all happen. Well, folks, once again, we're in the Hit Lab with Charlie Chase, the co-host of the Crook and Chase radio and TV productions, but you already knew that. Charlie, thank you so much for hanging with me today, man. Again, this has been an absolute honor and pleasure.
My pleasure as well. And I just hope that I sit here and I try to think to myself, what can I tell somebody moving forward? Take care of yourself and keep an eye on each other. We're all in this together. You can't separate church and state. You can't separate entertainers from regular people. We're all the same. Hey, be nice.
That's right.
That's what's missing in the world. Let's be nice again.
If you can't say nothing nice, you shouldn't say it, right? That was that old saying we were told as kids.
Yeah.
I know we tell our kids the same thing, and it's or at least just if you got something bad to say something good just to balance it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
The good will always win. Well, man, once again, folks, we had the co-host of the Crook and Chase radio and TV productions, the Mr. Charlie Chase. You can find him, keep up with everything they got going on. Happy 40th anniversary to him and Lori Ann for 40 years in show business and winning in the business. All their social medias at Crook and Chase, crookandchase.com. Again, I'm just, this was a great day. This was a great day and an awesome time.
One final thought.
Yes, sir.
My coffee's cold.
That means it's time to go.
Okay.
That means it's time to go. Well, folks, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of The Hitstreak. I am your man, Nick Hyder. God bless.